Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here, Jim.
Good, good. Tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. So my name's Michael Sunderland. I've been in the people finding space for about 10 years now. About half of
Hmm.
that was in staffing, like everybody, right? And then the other half was in corporate. And today I work for a company called Hudson RPO. I'm their Center of Excellence manager for a lot of their sourcing support. So I train a lot of our new sourcers. Recently, I've been doing a heck of a lot of talent intelligence. Anything about
Okay.
finding humans, I'm usually involved in some form of the process. So
Well, I understand you have something really, really cool to share with me. A cool tool, I think, right?
yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay.
I'm somewhat of an aficionado for D&I sourcing. I think there's so many
Hmm.
cool ways to do it and so many cool ways to not do it. And maybe a year ago, I came across what I think is just the coolest tool of all time. And I showed up to SourceCon at Minneapolis last year, excited to talk to everyone about it, and no one had any idea what I was talking about, Jim. So I am
Okay.
excited. I'm here to prophesize and get the word out about how honestly, I can't even. Once you see this, you're gonna say, "How could I even do DNI sourcing without this?" So I guess without
Wow.
further ado, I'm
Okay.
gonna show what the heck I'm talking about here.
All
So let's
right.
share my screen. The tool in question is called, and tell me if you can see my screen here, Jim, as of now.
Yep.
So
I
the
see it, Google.
So the tool in question here is called Native Current. So this is a completely free Chrome extension. Everything's a Chrome extension, right, Jim? Everything in our
Sure.
space.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you probably got to delete 30 of them to make room for this one, but it's worth it, I promise you. So this thing,
Okay.
and I just to be clear, I have no affiliation to this thing. I'm not the guy who made this. I don't know the guy who made this. Never spoke to him, but I'm just a super fan of this tool here. And effectively, what this tool is that it can turn Excel sheets into just Boolean strings. That's not too interesting by itself, right? That's
Hmm.
kind of whatever, just injecting a bunch of ors in parentheses. That's not that cool. But what is very cool here is that this community has taken the time to put together where you can find pretty much any group of person. So, if you're involved at your company and your organization has realized that, oh wow, we are way underrepresented when it comes to Latinos in our organization, you can now just open up Native Current and say, okay, great. What are all of the ways? I don't like to use names personally. I like to start with a lot of other areas first, but
Sure.
let's use this as an example. Let's just say that you have tech positions you're working on. Here's a huge comprehensive list of Latino and Latina tech groups that you can now work into your Boolean. Now, this is just kind of cool right now, right? This is just lists. This is just data.
Hmm.
Where this gets very cool is let's go to Google, right? And let's do every sourcer's favorite thing in the world, site colon linkedin.com
Yeah.
slash in. We could get like a tattoo of that, Jim. I feel like I'd probably type that in like like 10 times a day. But anyway, we're gonna do site colon linkedin.com slash in. Anyone who's not watching and just isn't familiar, this is going to return only LinkedIn profiles. If you were to just do site colon linkedin.com, it would give you anything on LinkedIn. If you do site colon linkedin.com slash in, that's the way the URL works for a profile specifically. So if you're searching for that, that's how you do it. Now let's
Okay.
just keep it super easy. Let's just say we're looking for Java, Jim. Let's just narrow it down by Java. Here's where it starts to get really juicy, Jim. Now, again, in this fictional scenario that I've come up with, let's just say, our organization that you and I work for, Jim, we've realized we have an underrepresentation of the Latino community in our organization, and we're trying to fix that. So I'm going to start to type in Latino here. And we can see in the top right, native current, they're flashing. It's picked up on something interesting. From here, I can right click and I can actually just insert all of those tech groups directly into my Boolean, just like that. And now I'm going to hit enter. And now I have not just LinkedIn profiles with Java, I have LinkedIn profiles with Java who are very likely to be part of some Latino organization. Now, if you're a very sharp sourcer, you might have kind of picked up on something. This is a lot of characters, right? This is a lot of words going into Google. So there are ways to get around this. It's a little tricky, but my organization, we've made some custom search engines that basically inject all of these backend things into it where there aren't any sort of character restrictions. Maybe
Hmm.
to give just one other kind of quick example here, I think what I was playing around with earlier was let's say your organization thinks they have an underrepresentation of the LGBTQ community, you could then use that to, okay, this is a much smaller list, 208 characters. I think we can get this full one in. Excellent. Now we have LinkedIn profiles with Java, with doing no research, Jim, with having like no really experience. We now have profiles that are very likely to be part of the LGBTQ community based on their affiliation with one of these groups. Is it perfect? No, right? I mean, some of these groups are going to have names. They're going to kind of like start out. Okay, like we should probably just delete this from our boolean entirely, right? There's going to be so many people who just say the phrase start out to some extent,
Hmm.
and we see that. Let's start out by saying Java, blah, blah, blah. So you definitely want to play with it a little bit to make sure you're not getting a lot of false positives. But for the impact you can have on a diversity sourcing string Jim, I love this tool.
Wow.
I think this is the coolest thing of all time to just be able to bam, inject it with any type of person you're looking for. I think the last thing I'd quickly say, Jim, before you maybe grill me here, is that if you use a seek out, or I think even if you use LinkedIn these days, they all have a lot of diversity tools built into it.
Sure.
But Jim, how many sourcers do you know that are scrappy? They're like, we ain't got money for any of that, right? We don't have money.
Right.
We don't have money for seek out. We don't have money for this. It's like this is a totally free thing to just turn Google into a diversity sourcing machine. So you can see I'm super passionate about this, Jim. I
Wow.
think it's awesome.
This is
How cool is that?
I'll agree with you. This is a cool tool. Good time saver. I really appreciate the company, whoever's behind it, putting all the work in and making it available for the community. Very cool.
If you go on YouTube, you see the gentleman who created it, and he talks about it and walks through it, and it really just seems like a passion project. There is some monetization there is for this tool, but the
Sure.
vast majority of it is free. And Jim, I know I'm taking a lot of the rant time here, but the last thing I'd throw out as well is that you can also use it with your own spreadsheets. So by default, it uses all of that research they've done into all these different groups of individuals. But let's just say you and your sourcing team, you're always, you could just make a table that shows, okay, here's a column for all of our front end technologies, right? Here's a column for all of our back end technologies. And when you are sourcing, you can then just right click and inject all the front end technology into your search string, all the back end technology into it. So you don't have to constantly be writing the same things over and over again. And you can collaborate with your team on all the keywords to make sure everyone's aligned. So there is a lot of cool features from that aspect as well, from what it's worth, Jen. Like I said, I just think it's an awesome tool.
It is. It is very simple, very intuitive, which I like. I'm thinking, as you were demonstrating it, I'm thinking, okay, the Google custom search engine set that up that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Something out the Chat GPT store. Maybe set something up using some of this information. The building blocks of doing even greater things, I see it in this demonstration you did. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know there are plenty of people watching who appreciate you bringing this to the light.
Well, absolutely. And there's, every organization in America has been asking for years, how do we do better by the communities we employ
Sure.
out of? And
Sure.
so many, I think, recruiting professionals just don't know where to start. And it's like, okay, there you go. Now you know where to start, right? Like there's an actual method to where you can execute this.
Very, very nice. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the source.
Absolutely. Thank you.